first we need to understand basically the term governance. Then good governance. Differences, understanding differences between them, important. Although let's say that way we do not expect a question, but often let's say that when question uses a term called governance, people write good governance. So they do not understand the difference, and all these topics are equally relevant in ethics paper, although teaching orientation differs a bit in ethics paper. In ethics paper, they have asked a question related to difference between governance, good governance, and ethical governance. Right. Once they ask, differentiate between governance, good governance, and ethical governance. It means there is a difference between governance and good governance. Yes. So we'll try to explain it. This. Governance. So whether government governs, you can say, or government administer, you can say. Whether government govern or administer, it means basically, let's say, it is exercise of authority. Yes. So whether you say it government or you say administration, right? Basically, let's say that what they do is that they take decision, execute decision. But this take decision, execute decision is nothing but it is equal to exercise of authority. This traditional government, this government or administration had basically top-down approach. Top-down approach. It has centralization of power. It adopted centralization of power, top-down approach, or government, right, all powerful. Right, believed that it was capable of solving problems of society. Solving problems of society. Like even let's say state. So what we had is state. If you understand in traditional sense, so we say that the state should have three organs: legislature, executive, and judiciary. In traditional sense, and this executive should have bureaucracy or administration, and it is this administration which will serve people. This is the traditional structure. Even traditionally also it was considered that it was the government through administration would try to serve people. It was presumed that the government or administration, they would exercise all those powers. It will remain concentrated. Power will remain concentrated in their hand. They are the sole authority, you can say that. Sole institution, you can say that. It is the sole authority, it is the sole institution which believes that it will be able to solve the problems of people, govern people. That is the traditional presumption. That even in monarchical time, past also, whatever you can say, even in constitution also, if you talk, let's say constitution, may hardly in constitution you will have terms related to civil society organization, other things. Largely, let's say in constitution, what it is written about machineries of the government. It is about what are the objectives, what are the machineries, and how to achieve that. Like say DPSPs also. Even DPSPs are written. So let's say that DPSPs. So DPSP means directive policy, let's say principle of state policy. So it says that it should be implemented by state. It should be implemented by, but already we have done that. If you remember, 1990s onwards, isn't it? 1990s onwards, we are trying to achieve this through market. We are achieving through market. We are achieving through public-private partnership. Thus, not necessarily through state. So, why it started happening? Why it started happening? Why state is not trying to achieve, rather state is trying to achieve that through market, or state is trying to achieve that through civil society. So before 1990s we had this approach. It is called traditional governance. So we can say either traditional governance, you can say traditional government, you can say traditional administration, whatever the name you can take this. So that way, let's say that it used to be, and you know that it may be effective in some areas, but when government governs alone, it is not as much capable as when it governs together. This you should know that. When it governs together, means what it governs together. So when it governs with other stakeholders, the capability of the government to solve a problem increases when it brings other stakeholders in the process. Right. So basically the governments till first 4 decades, let's say, they were not only in India, let's say, all across the world. It is a concept which has been given all across the world. But since it is polity paper, GS paper, we cannot talk those things much. But don't think that it is a development in India. No, its development is that it's the way polity is not developed in India. Similarly, governance and good governance, RTI, Citizen Charter, all these things are not developed in India. Right? They have their origin elsewhere. And those origins come during 80s and 90s only. Even in their countries also, because the concept of this was also given by that traditional polity. The traditional polity. In that traditional polity, you think that it is the executive through administration would serve people, govern. This hardly traditional polity talks the role of market and role of civil society organization. This that way. This is what we have to understand. So in this you'll see that this state etc. was trying to achieve. But what happens if you take, let's say, towards 1980s, state failures become more perceptible. Basically, state failure means, let's say that inefficiency. This failure is related to this state inefficiency, this corruption, this inefficiency, corruption. These things started becoming more clear. This towards 1980s, like say in our country also, you know that what happened. We introduced new economic policy. Why you introduced new economic policy? Okay. So somehow state became inefficient. It was not able to run PSUs efficiently. But that is not the context. Context is also, you know that, you remember what Rajiv Gandhi told. Rajiv Gandhi told that out of 100 paisa, let's say that, only 15 paisa is to reach to people. So why it reached to people? Only 15 paisa. Right. So this is due to corruption. This. So it is due to corruption, let's find. So many things, let's say, were developing, let's say that during 1980s we'll find this. So 1980s, even today you can say this. So inefficiency, corruption, poor governance, because state as a machinery, state as an institution, when it dominates, it becomes, let's say, manipulative. This you can say. It becomes manipulative, it misuses power, it exercises power in arbitrary manner. This. So it was in this context you'll find that these things were highlighted initially by World Bank. World Bank went on highlighting it. Right. First, it highlighted in 1989. It gave a report from crisis to development. From crisis to development, in which gave 4 components of governance. Four components of governance, which we say as that's efficient management, it is called transparency, this is called accountability, and this is called rule of law. Yes. So government should have efficient management, it should have transparency, accountability, and rule of law. Then again, let's say that in 1992, it gave a report called Governance and Development. Governance and Development. Here it gave first definition of governance. And then finally 1997 gave Characteristics of good governance. This. It will take a bit time to understand. This you should know that. Once you understand, you'll understand everything. Social audit, RTI, citizen charter, accountability, everything you understand. And if you do not understand, so you will not understand others. You will just keep writing information the way people write in answer. Information is written rather than concept is known. It is not that challenging also. So we are trying to explain you by taking I'm trying to explain in a very slow manner. Right? What that governance basically is. This. The way we try to understand what polity is, then we try to understand about 3 organs of the state. Similarly, another major development happens in this world, and that is called governance. This. And today, everywhere we talk governance. Corporate governance, ethics में आएगा आपको. तो ये जानना जरूरी है कि गवर्नेंस और गुड गवर्नेंस और कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस में डिफरेंस क्या है. राइट. अब G20 पढ़ोगे तो उसमें वो ग्लोबल गवर्नेंस की बात करेंगे, फाइनेंशियल गवर्नेंस की बात करेंगे, isn't it? तो वहां भी गवर्नेंस आएगा. तो वो गवर्नेंस क्या है. फिर पेपर 3 पढ़ोगे, एनवायरमेंटल गवर्नेंस आएगा. सो ये गवर्नेंस जो चीज है, एवरीवेयर वी आर ट्राइंग टू यूज गवर्नेंस. सो तो समझना चाहिए इसको कि क्या है आखिर में. व्हाई वी आर टॉकिंग एनवायरमेंट गवर्नेंस, व्हाई वी आर टॉकिंग दिस ग्लोबल गवर्नेंस. और जो फेडरल पॉलिटी आएगा तो वी विल टॉक कोलैबोरेटिव गवर्नेंस. राइट. फिर वो कोलैबोरेटिव गवर्नेंस क्या है. दिस. So that's why understanding governance is important. We are trying to help you understand what is governance. Right. Already they have asked in 2019 paper 2nd collaborative governance term. This you should know. That year they used some terms and which you can consider very unexpected. One was collaborative governance, and second was democratic development discourse. The question was related to development discourse. This means many a time they do not ask question from a particular topic, rather they ask question by, let's say, combination of several topics and framing one essence of all those topics. This way. So development discourse related question was based on that. So this governance we are trying to tell. So basically let's see you will not be able to understand कि ये सब क्या है unless you understand this, why there is this, let's say that largely if you take the developed countries, if you take developing countries, in developed countries government role is very limited. Government role is very limited. Rather, there you find, let me just to tell. So, government role will be very limited. And there you will find the private sector role, civil society organization, they have very wide role. this, and then they are able to govern effectively. This, if you take developing countries, like say even India, you'll find this government role is very wide, PVT, private sector, civil society, limited. Although we are also trying to give more role to private sector, but not like the way it is in Western countries, right? Like आप दूसरे तरीके का एग्जाम्पल लो, मान लो नासा. So NASA does not itself, let's say that let's say develop satellites or space programs. Rather, it gives contracts to other parties. Right? There are let's say you can have startup, private entrepreneurs. Right? Or let's say that it has the SpaceX. This. So, सोचो हमारे यहाँ क्या चल रहा है? ISRO, right? ISRO is government-led model, let's say institution. और US में क्या चल रहा है? Right. और एक साल में वो इतने सैटेलाइट लॉन्च करते हैं, माइक्रो सैटेलाइट्स. Anyhow, now ये हुआ कैसे? Isn't it? तो US गवर्नमेंट को टेंशन नहीं है. US government को, it is not in tension. Already there is an entrepreneur, he wants to innovate. Right. What they have done is, they have provided that person land, right? Isn't it? उसको पास लीगल राइट होना चाहिए. लैंड भी प्रोवाइड किया उन्होंने. And then they may have some other, let's say, interaction. Right. So SpaceX is today, in today's context, the most innovative, right, institution in the field of space. Can we say? Now development will happen through that. Innovation will happen through that. This. So that is how, let's say, now we are following this model. We are also following? No. Skyroot, the startup in space sector. It has been given contact by ISRO. Right. So now we are following this, let's say. In space sector, one agency has been constituted to manage the commercial aspect of space. No. So we are trying to promote, let's say, private sector. This is also an example of space space governance, let's say, or space sector, let's say that. So that is what we are trying to talk, let's say, when we bring them also together, government has its own ability, let's say that it has X ability, and it has Y ability, it has Z ability. So when you bring together, it will be X plus Y plus Z. That ability will be much more higher than only X. It will be higher than only X. Right. So the process to bring them together, जो ये process है, process to bring them together, we say it governance. This is how it is. and it means the governance will enhance ability of the state to solve problems more effectively. This. So that way. Now let's take example. So generally we give example. Let's start. This. So now we know that it is being implemented. So what we have done is Manrega. Manrega is, let's say, implemented by Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha, let's say. Gram Sabha is responsible for identifying the beneficiaries. Now, Gram Sabha can carry out Manrega. It's a social audit. There is a provision to do social audit. Right? There is a provision to apply RTI. Right? RTI don't be like, वो कुछ करेगा नहीं, right? People. People participation. It will bring civil society organization. They can also apply. Right. RTI will bring, let's say, MKSS. MKSS. This. Now, Gram Sabha is implemented. Social audit is being done. Now, social audit को help किसने किया है? CAG ने किया है. This social audit कैसे करना चाहिए? Standard is prepared by CAG. This. Now let's say that since social audit is being done, Gram Sabha, the Gram Sabha can be also helped by the people. This. Right. Gram Sabha will take help of other self-help groups. This. So you can imagine what is happening. Right. There is emergence of process. मनरेगा से एक process develop होता है. Right. Basically, these all are nothing but, right, they are all giving rise to a process of participation of different stakeholders. It is giving rise to a process, different stakeholders participate. इससे क्या होगा? When there are participation, means different stakeholders. First, there will be transparency. Different stakeholders participate, so transparency होगा. And इसका efficiency improve होगा. Efficiency, effectiveness. This means it will be more effectively implemented, more efficiently implemented. जो भी loopholes है, drawbacks है, misuse of fund है, ये सारा कम होगा. Isn't it? The corruption कम होगा. Basically, corruption will be minimized. Minimization of corruption means improvement in efficiency and effectiveness. This. So, program will be more effectively implemented. Meanwhile, और भी चीजें आया इसमें, like कि अब हमने इसको लिंक कर दिया ICT से, तो वो आ गया यहाँ पर e-governance, right? E-governance, like say कि डीबीटी इंट्रोड्यूस किया हमने मनरेगा इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए, राइट. So the process is expanding. The governance process is expanding. We started giving the concept since 90s, and then since other developments are happening, the process is expanding. Expanding in the sense कि बाद में e-governance आता है. Self help group उस समय था नहीं. Self help group we started since 1995. Right. Means formally we started 1995. When we started, so then we started promoting self-help groups. Right. So now self-help groups are quite grown, means they are quite grown up now. You find that the self-help group has become another, let's say, important development that it is mentioned in your syllabus as a topic. Yes, civil society has become an important development that is mentioned as a topic. Important है तभी तो वो टॉपिक है, right? तो कुछ ना कुछ उससे रिलेटेड डेवलपमेंट हुआ होगा तभी तो सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप है यार, सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वी हैव. In fact, RTI was started by MKSS. You should know that. Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sanghti. Right. So we'll talk one day when we'll take civil society, social audited sectors. So what we are trying to do is that we are trying to implement Manrega by all these things. Right. Now, let's take any scheme which is not being implemented in that. Right. So, let's take called any scheme you can consider public distribution system. So, public distribution system is implemented and then fair shop wala, fair shop, let's say, private person is given this. So that way we are trying to implement, right? Fair shop, and contract is given. It is by Pradhan. Pradhan of that area gives the contract. Right. This to a private person. Yes. That is known as, that private person runs his fair shop. And it is this fair shop which, let's say, delivers to people. It delivers to people rations. Now, since in this we do not have created this type of, let's say, process. So in public distribution system, you know that there is high incidence of corruption. अब तो काफी कम हो गया है, आज के डेट में एग्जांपल देना थोड़ा सा मुश्किल है, लेकिन सोचो आज से, let's say that 10 years back, 20 years back, right, जब e-governance just start हुआ था, right. So अब तो e-governance आ गया है, तो automatization हो गया है, and people participation है, state governments have taken lots of initiatives, but still you know that the way we have created social audit, the social audit was mentioned in the law itself. Manrega is the law in which social audit is mentioned for the first time. And social audit is nothing but audit by people. People will audit, means Gram Sabha will audit. The role of CAG is played by people. The people will scrutinize the implementation. Plus, Gram Sabha has been given power to identify the beneficiaries at Gram Sabha level. Again, people participation. In past, such role was played by bureaucracy. Such role was played by bureaucracy. Now the role has gone to people. Now Gram Sabha is getting assisted by self-help groups. This government has Deen Dayal Upadhyay. Deen Dayal Upadhyay livelihood mission. In past it was known as the National Rural Livelihood Mission. The National Rural Livelihood Mission is now named as Deen Dayal Upadhyay Livelihood Mission. This That Deen Dayal Upadhyaya mission, our National Rural Livelihood Mission, is only related to self-help groups, which was initiated in 2011. Right. So, self-help groups, let's say they are helping. RTI has been brought since 2005, so RTI people can apply. So, that will also promote participation. Although RTI can be also applied to PDS, but we do not have a social audit system. That Gram Sabha cannot scrutinize, let's say it has not been given that kind of power. Self-help groups are not participating. So Manrega has been, let's say that brought under governance process, means Manrega is the scheme under which you can see how there is governance process. And because of that, the effectiveness of the scheme is better than other schemes. This. राइट, ऑडिट में वो ये देखते हैं कि जो वर्क किया गया है वो वर्क हुआ है कि नहीं. जैसे कि रोड उन्होंने रिपेयर किया, तो क्या रोड रिपेयर हुआ है? राइट, दिस पीपल बिलोंग टू द लोकल एरिया. The Gram Sabha people will belong to the same Gram Sabha. So they know what are the works they have done. They will write in record that these works have been done. The works which they have written on paper, they will try to see whether in actually they have been done or not. Then they will see the quality of work. Then they will see how many people work, means that work is related to how many people. मान लो वो वर्क 4 लोगों का है और पेपर पे आपने 10 लोगों लिखा है कि 10 लोगों ने काम किया है. Right. So that is how it will try. They will try to scrutinize. उसके पैटर्न है, वो भी एक टाइम आएगा. आई विल टेल यू कैसे होता है. उसका ऑडिट का स्टैंडर्ड डिसाइड किया गया है. राइट. सो कैग हैज डिसाइडेड द स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ ऑडिट. CAG gives training to some members who can have, let's say, some knowledge related to audit. तो ग्राम सभा के कुछ मेंबर्स को CAG ट्रेन करता है. उसके जो ऑडिटर्स हैं स्टेट लेवल पे, वो ट्रेनिंग देते हैं उनको. प्लस उनको सिविल सोसाइटी भी ट्रेन करती है, अवेयर करती है, एजुकेट करती है. राइट. प्लस सम ऑफिसर्स विल बी डेजिग्नेटेड, जैसे कि ब्लॉक डेवलपमेंट ऑफिसर है. राइट. तो वो उसको बोला जाएगा कि आप यू गो एंड डू ऑडिट विथ ग्राम सभा, या यू शुड बी प्रेजेंट इन द ऑडिट. सो देयर इज ए प्रोसेस, लेट्स से दैट डिफाइंड to carry out social audit. That will bring people's participation. Yes, sir? Dominating role of government. Yes, so what do you want to ask? But it is not as dominating as, let's say, I will give the example, another example. कैग एक अलग तरह से इंस्टीट्यूशन हो गया, तो पावर डिवाइड हो गया. This way you can say, when multiple institutions are involved, the power get divided. This power get divided. But when there is only one institution or two institutions, the power remains concentrated. Right. Basically, this is a power which is getting divided. This main thing is power concentration, traditional time. Why corruption is there? Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. This. RTI से आपको information मिलेगा. RTI will give you information how much funds were given, how much funds utilized, which works have been done, how many people were paid wages, how much wages were paid. All these information you can get by applying RTI related to Manrega. Now, once you get that information, so it can become basis to scrutinize the work of, let's say, Gram Sabha, or let's say ki any, let's say ki block level office, district level office, which ultimately is responsible at district level to implement मनरेगा. This. अगर आपको उसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम लगता है तो यू कैन क्वेश्चन. अगर ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम लगता है तो मीडिया में रिपोर्ट हो सकता है. तो मीडिया में रिपोर्ट होगा तो वो एक्सपोजर हो जाता है. Right. So malpractices and flaws will be reported in media, and that once it is reported, so it creates checks and balances. Government feels morally obliged to take action. So there is a pressure. Let's say that already you will be under certain check, right? Because you know that now your work can be scrutinized. Administrators, civil servants, government functionaries, now they have in their conscience that their work would be scrutinized. So when their work would be scrutinized, they will become more cautious in their action, and they will try to improve quality of their work. This. So because of that, it will ultimately improve transparency and efficiency and minimize corruption. Yes. फेयर शॉप जो होता है वो पीडीएस शॉप को फेयर शॉप बोलते हैं. जो पीडीएस जिसको भी पीडीएस पब्लिक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सिस्टम में राइट्स दिया जाता है राशन डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करने का, उस शॉप को बोलते हैं फेयर शॉप. सो there was an old program that is known as Community Development Program. It was the first program of our country after independence. Right? And Community Development Program was Community Development Program was initiated for bringing development in our society, right? Now, for community development, we went on creating block development officer, BDO. The block development officer is a kind of part of bureaucracy. It is a bureaucratic approach. So, the scheme was implemented through BDO. This. And you know that what happened? This scheme failed. Because of bureaucratization. When a scheme failed because of bureaucratization, इसी के ऊपर बलवंत राय मेहता कमेटी सेटअप किया गया. In 1950, after 5 years, when it was found the scheme was failing, hence government constituted Balwant Rai Mehta Committee. And Balwant Rai Mehta Committee recommended the program failed due to bureaucratization. Solution: democratic decentralization. Democratic decentralization. वो कैसे हुआ? PRIs. So that's why Panchayati Raj institutions were constituted in 1958 for participation of people. So it is not a new idea that people should participate. You should know that it is still even in old idea, let's say, even in that time also it was realized that when we have excessive bureaucratization or when we have a bureaucratic approach or bureaucracy is the sole authority to implement any policy, that policy may not necessarily be implemented effectively. Okay. This and people should participate. But that time there was no governance concept. उस समय गवर्नेंस का कंसेप्ट नहीं था. गवर्नेंस का कंसेप्ट 80s और 90s में आता है. राइट. उसका कॉन्टेक्स्ट ये है कि बेसिकली 80s एंड 90s यू नो दैट कि डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज and privatization movement starts, liberalization, privatization, globalization which start. So in that privatization, liberalization, globalization, World Bank, IMF, they talk about structural adjustment program. They talk about reforms in developing countries. Our structural adjustment program was known as New Economic Policy. This. In that context, they are also talking ki how developing countries had poor governance and they should improve their governance, known as good governance. Yes. So, but that part we will come a bit later. What we are trying to tell you that when government is trying to govern all alone through bureaucracy, although you want to become a bureaucrat, so it will be a bit hard to believe that how bureaucracy can become so ineffective. But it is true, not that we are saying ourselves. It has been, let's say, that proved all across the countries, not only in our country, how bureaucracy is inefficient or is not a suitable institution to bring development in society. Right. Because it has its own, let's say, problems and challenges, including, let's say, that when BDO was brought to bring development, BDO is a qualified person selected through, let's say, state service examination. Right. So then BDO should have played his role and then schemes should have been implemented effectively. Right. But since there is a quite dominance of bureaucracy, less role of market or civil society organization. Hence, let's say that the program failed because of excessive control, or you can say inefficiency and corruption. Yes. So, this way you can see now this it was being implemented through BDO, but if you see this Manrega, how it is being implemented, it becomes more flatter, right? It becomes more, let's say, network type thing. You can find that a network of relationship is established, right? So many stakeholders come. Now, let's say someone is asking, right, what self-help groups can help. So when we'll teach you one day self-help group, you will understand what self-help groups can do. Self-help groups have better awareness, knowledge about the government schemes and programs, and their presence can promote greater transparency. This. So they know about some aspects of how to bring audit. They know about Manrega scheme. They are better prepared to participate in audit. That way, let's say they can work with Gram Sabha. They can create awareness among Gram Sabha members. That way, government is promoting partnership between self-help groups and Gram Sabha. If you read the Yojana November 2021, which we taught local bodies, November Yojana 2021, if you read, there is one chapter related to Gram Sabha in which it is mentioned how self-help groups are helping Gram Sabha. This. So that way we can consider, so that way we can try to say what we are trying to say basically by this structure. So traditionally, let's say that state used to be big. If we say that before 90s. Now state is like this. So what has happened? Power has shifted. So power, let's say the power of state has shifted towards market and civil society organization. This means in a way you can say that the power has shifted towards people. Right. This means we can say that it has shifted towards people. This you can say. So when power has shifted towards people, the government will become less, let's say that tall, hierarchical, it will become more flatter. This but let's say one day when you will know schemes, आप पढ़ोगे तो आपको ये बेहतर समझ में आएगा. Self help group, मनरेगा, other schemes, when you will know this. Right. Let me give another example to understand. You may have heard about aspirational district initiative. Right. Aspirational district initiative. Now, in aspirational district initiative, basically it is by Ministry of Rural Development. This scheme is under Ministry of Rural Development, but its think tank support is provided by its think tank is Niti Aayog. This. Now, it is being implemented at states level, right, and then further down the, that's it, district, and now we have taken blocks, taluks, block aspirational initiative. This has also been done. Now let's say Niti Aayog is also helping states this, but the scheme is, let's say, also being held by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The scheme is being held by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Right. In terms of support, funds, others, let's say that. Plus, it is also being held by Tata Institute of Social Science, TIS. Right. They are both, they are civil society organizations. Right. They are civil society organizations. And they are helping, so they will form a network with state. It will form a network with this. So, आज के डेट में most of the schemes, programs and policies are implemented through that kind of system. Traditional top-down नहीं मिलेगा. This you should know that. Traditional top-down you will not get. Rather, it is more flatter in the sense कि more, let's say, process type, and there would be more stakeholders. Means it is not only the government which is trying to be part of the implementation. Either there will be a private sector or there will be civil society organization. This. Yes, the public-private partnership is more about private. This you can say. Public-private partnership is more about private. So that is also part of governance. राइट, बट प्राइवेट वी डू नॉट गिव मोर एग्जाम्पल सिंस हमारे सिलेबस में वो नहीं है तो प्राइवेट वाला एग्जाम्पल ही विल नॉट गिव, बट एक एग्जाम्पल वो भी मैं आपको देके बताऊंगा उसमें कैसे होता है गवर्नेंस, राइट. दिस इज ऑल्सो ए प्रोसेस ऑफ गवर्नेंस. In fact, it is example of collaborative governance. जो 2019 में क्वेश्चन आया था उसका यही एग्जाम्पल होगा. It is an example of collaborative governance. See, collaboration वहां पे यूज होता है जहां पे मोर देन वन स्टेक होल्डर हो प्लस मल्टी लेवल कोऑपरेशन हो. मल्टी लेवल इज नेशनल लेवल, स्टेट लेवल, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल, लोकल लेवल. तो मल्टी लेवल कोऑपरेशन होता है जहां पे देयर आर सो मेनी स्टेक होल्डर्स एंड मल्टी लेवल्स आर देयर. तो कोलैबोरेटिव इज ए ब्रॉडर टर्म देन कोऑपरेटिव. That's why we use collaborative governance, but we are trying to understand governance. Yes. So governance main aspect is participation, sharing powers. This you should know. If you understand in that way, then you will be able to understand good governance. That's the difference. The governance, whatever the example we are giving, they can be example of good governance also, governance also. But in governance, we are giving more focus on participation. We are not giving example ki how good they are, right, or how better they have become. Rather, we are just trying to show different stakeholders' participation. This, and that is another example of governance. Let's say that this. Then, yes, LPG is basically started in other countries during, let's say, 80s. In our country, it is 1991, although it is started in Rajiv Gandhi time. Exact year, if you know, so it is 1978. It started in UK and at the same time in US. Thatcherism and Reaganism जिसको बोला जाता है. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister in UK. Reagan was President in US. During their tenure, they started first privatization and liberalization. Other countries started thereafter. Yes, LPG basically, especially globalization जो हमारे सिलेबस में नहीं है, होना चाहिए, इसलिए कि इस तरह से जो डिसजॉइंटेड सिलेबस से होता है कि पढ़ाने वाले को भी पढ़ने वालों को भी समझ में नहीं आता. Here and there topics. Basically, governance is a product of LPG, like globalization. जब globalization होता है तो globalization talks about democratization, decentralization, privatization, participation of civil society organization. So globalization has encouraged liberalization, privatization practices, and international financial institutions have been trying to, let's say, somehow force the developing countries to decentralize, to democratize, to become more transparent. How you can decentralize, democratize? You have to give power in the hand of people, give power in the hand of market. That results into giving process called governance and good governance. So this is what, let me give you two more examples of participation, then we'll start talking finally. Let's take stubble burning. Stubble burning issue चल रहा है, isn't it? So जैसे pollution control के लिए we have Central Pollution Control Board, यही नाम है, Central Pollution Control Board. अब Central Pollution Control Board ये क्या है? एक ब्यूरोक्रेटिक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. तो क्या सेंट्रल पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड अकेले ऑल अलोन पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल कर सकता है? आज के डेट में ट्रेडिशनली तो ऐसा ही होता था. It will regulate the pollution. Right. Now stubble burning के लिए हम क्या कर रहे हैं, कैसे कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं? Right. Stubble burning is, let's say, union and state, then district magistrate, then local, this, then we have farmers. Right. It has also, we have also its role. This. But do you think they are themselves doing, or some other things are also there? Right. टेक्नोलॉजी कौन प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं? इट इज बीइंग प्रोवाइडेड बाय जो लेट्स से दैट हार्वेस्टर टाइप, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजीज आर देयर. नो, machines and some techniques. So the machines and techniques are being helped by private sector, plus some civil society organization having expertise in that area. They have developed. So without their help, it is not possible. This. Plus, let's say that self-help group. Self-help group. Basically, controlling stubble burning, government has, let's say central government has a centrally sponsored scheme. If you read that scheme, in that it has mentioned even role of self-help. So, if you see how we are trying to control stubble burning, let's say environment related, basically it is nothing but it is a kind of, all these things are giving rise to call environment. Right. Environment governance, various stakeholders are participating. Right. आपको जो PM2 लेवल है, right, उसके बारे में कौन ज्यादा बताता है? Civil society. There are various types of civil society which have done research work in the field of pollution, PM2 level, its effects, in which city, in which part this PM2 level is high. This kind of thing. What measures can be taken? They have international exposures and they are helping the government to improve its policy. Yes. So, today pollution control or regulation is more about, let's say, participatory process rather than just the role of Central Pollution Control Board to regulate pollution. It cannot do unless it brings different stakeholders in the process. Yes. And that is called environmental governance. Right. And the last example to include private sector, it is like this. So let's take power sector. Right. So power sector, let's say that. In power sector, basically what we have done is we have separated. It is called generation, it is called transmission, it is called distribution. Now, power distribution is being done by private sector. ये तो आपको पता होगा. No, like से कि दिल्ली में BACS नाम है. Isn't it? It is the power distributor. This. Now, let's say that it is, do you think it is free to determine tariff? Power tariff? Not. We have regulator. We have created a separate regulator for this. Right, power sector regulator. This, that can be electricity commission, electricity board, whatever आप बोलो. right? So there is regulator. Then in city you have resident welfare association, नाम सुना हो? Resident welfare association, right? Plus let's say that कि companies जो मीटर मैन्युफैक्चर करती है, isn't it? उनको ऐसा मीटर बनाना है जो टेम्पर ना हो, this और सही रीडिंग दे, it should give right reading, but स्टिल इनका ज्यादा रोल नहीं होगा. उसके बाद क्या है? गवर्नमेंट. बेसिकली लेट्स से कि these three institutions are working together. पावर सप्लाई को, पावर सप्लाई में, पावर सप्लाई पहले कौन करता था? पावर सप्लाई गवर्नमेंट ऑल अलोन. गवर्नमेंट इज ए ब्यूरोक्रेटिक इंस्टीट्यूशन, अभी भी होता है. पावर सप्लाई इज बीइंग डन लेड बाय दिस. पावर सप्लाई इन पास्ट वाज बाय गवर्नमेंट. यू नो हाउ इट वाज? Can we say it is efficient? At least you compare this. Can we say? Right. Power supply efficiency has increased. Right. This cost effectiveness of meters, let's say that की consumption, power consumption, meters, etc. जब गवर्नमेंट पावर सप्लाई करती थी तो मीटर्स नहीं होते थे, बल्क में बिल आता है. तो किसी के घर में एक बल्ब जले या 100 बल्ब जले, बिल इज सेम. अभी भी है ऐसा. राइट. यस, बल्क में आता है. ठीक है. 50,000. Anyhow, what we are trying to say, let's say power supply. The power supply was still, she is right, still it comes in bulk, right? And it is run by government. It is because of run by government, or even if there is a private sector, billing, metering has not been done properly. This. So what we are trying to say is that 80s and 90s onwards, this is how the realization happens, that the government which was trying to govern alone was not as effective as if it brings different stakeholders in the process of its decision making and decision execution. This is another stage of polity, let's say that polity changes, because traditional polity was envisioned that the government will do with its machineries, but 80s and 90s they say that the government should do with stakeholders. This. And that is how in every sector or almost all sectors, many such examples we have given, there is emphasis on participation or a process creation in which different stakeholders participate. And in all those sectors you will find that there is improvement in quality of service, there is improvement in efficiency and reduction in corruption. This. That is what governance we can say. This, that it was envisioned, and this is what we have to write on governance. Right? So is it clear? So let's write the context of governance. Although governance by state is as old as society, since governments administered state, state. However, governance, in terms of its collective orientation or a process orientation is a new development rooted in 1980s and 90s, led by liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Same paragraph. It has been highlighted that first, the traditional government exercise authority all alone. Next, there was concentration of power. Next, there was bureaucratic way of solving problems. That is, government tried to govern as per traditional democratic polity. All alone. Even if it did not have complete failure, but it was not efficient enough to solve the problems of society. It was found that how there were inefficiency and corruption. On the one hand, and on the other, people had passive role in process of governance. It was in this context governance came to be emphasized during 80s and 90s, and also it was defined like first World Bank defines in the manner authorities exercise in the management of in the management of social and economic resources for development. For development. Development. Next, in general it is defined as a collective process of solving the problems of society. A collective process of solving the problems of society, in which the three stakeholders participate. The three stakeholders participate: public, private, and civil society organizations. Public, private, and civil society organizations, or it is a participative process led by three stakeholders to effectively solve the problems of society. Effectively solve the problems of society. Right. OHCHR defines governance. That all processes of governing the institutions, processes and practices through which issues of common concern are decided upon and regulated. Next, it is considered as a process of governing government institutions effectively, along with sharing powers with other stakeholders. So that is, all definitions give emphasis on process and participation. That under governance, power of the government is shared. Among different stakeholders. Hence, it is also known as shared governance. Shared governance. shared governance. Okay. It means governance indicates that first, the government must not govern alone. The government must not govern alone. Next, the government must govern together. The government must govern together. Next, people should have active participation. People should have active participation. Active participation. Change paragraph. Therefore, the ability to solve problem under governance, the ability to solve problems under governance becomes much more effective than when government all alone tries to solve problems. That's why one can find in today's context that in all different walk of life, be it first social justice, like programs and schemes, next infrastructure development, next regulation, next promotion of sustainable development, Change paragraph. One can find a participative process, in which both private sector and civil society organization play active role. Right. It means governance is based on the belief that belief that if power is shared, it has potential to improve efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability, and promote good governance. That's why governance is being applied in different fields. That we talk about environment governance, we talk about financial governance, we talk about good governance, it corporate governance? Collaborative governance? Yes. So let's difference between government and governance. So Prime Minister has also differentiated between government and governance. Government indicates an institution. It is an entity. Its main aim is to exercise authority. It is quantitative in nature and it is top-down oriented. It tries to control, maintain status quo. Governance, on the other hand, is a process, not an institution. आपको ये नहीं कि गवर्नेंस का कोई एड्रेस है आप चले जाओगे वहां पर. Governance, it's just a process, right, which you can feel but even cannot visualize much. Right? This, it comes through participation. This you can say this. So this participation, then flatter, flexible, qualitative, because it treats people as active. And Prime Minister also says this when he says that governance is life, governance is people. This. So it has gone to that level, and this is how file and power. Right? It's able to understand governance. So then let's say when we were talking about participation, it is one stage of the evolution, you can say. Then merely participation is not important. We need to, let's say that, govern in certain qualitative fashion. This. So when we have told this, all these things are indicating one common element. In all of them, one common element will be that participation. Collective way, because governance is common. But merely participation cannot be characteristics of all. They will have their own specific characteristics also. No. They will have specific characteristics also related to that field. How we can promote this good. What is that good? The good will have its own characteristics. Collective will be one aspect. Collective is the base. And in that collective, there is, let's say, a qualitative aspect also. Further added. Right. And that is added by good. Let's write good governance. Good governance can be considered as extension of governance. Good governance can be considered as extension of governance. 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 To solve problems of society. Solve problems of society. Not only in collective manner. Not only in collective manner, but also with a set of defined standards. Set of defined standards or values. Set of defined standards or values. Values, also known as characteristics of good governance.